Hi guys, this is Sana. I'm a community initiative lead at Recro, and today I'm having Rajat Vijay with us. So he is a front-end engineering manager at Certa, which is a US-based startup, and they are into SaaS platform, software as a service. And today he will be talking more about production TypeScript, front-end perspective, and I'll leave that topic to him. He will be the best person to tell you guys what exactly we are going to talk about. Okay, so I'm working at Recro, and this event is organized by Recro. This webinar is by Recro, which is a developer-centric organization wherein we are trying to connect developers' aspiration to the right opportunity by working with the high-growth startups like Swiggy, CureFit, Dunzo, Udan, and there are many other companies in the similar line. So yeah, I think we should get started. I'll just give it to you, Rajat.
So this is production TypeScript from a front-end perspective. So we have in our current company, we have been moving a huge legacy-based JavaScript code base to TypeScript, and these are some of the learnings and the pitfalls that we have learned. So I'm just going to talk about some of these things. Let's start with the question: why did we even think of migrating a code base to TypeScript? The only reason was getting the type safety at the compile time. So what TypeScript does is it gives you type safety for every functions and data variables that you have so that your type does not mismatch, and it helps you catch most of your uh, exceptions that can be raised at the runtime on the compile time only. Now this is a very important thing, that you can only take the benefit of TypeScript at the compile time. TypeScript is not available once your code is compiled into JavaScript and it's being run. The TypeScript type safety is not available there. Although TypeScript compiler is very intelligent, but it's very easy to trick it. So one very simple example is, instead of having very specific types, you can start using any for everything. So when you use any for everything, it's just simple JavaScript with a lot of noise. You does not get any type safety of TypeScript. There are still other ways. So in our organization, we currently have this rule where you 99% of the time do not use any. There are 1% actual use cases of any, so that are acceptable. But whenever you see an any, there is a very strict code review. But tricking TypeScript without using any is also simpler. So let's look at this example. So here I have a sum function which takes argument an array. That array is of type data packet. A data packet is just a JavaScript object that takes num as one key, and the value of the num is number. It's of type number. The function takes an array of data packets and return a number. And if you look at the definition of the function, I'm just accessing the first element of the array, taking the num part, accessing the second element of the array, taking the num part, and adding these two and returning. Since this is number, the return type has to be number. Now look at this line. If you run this code in the TypeScript playground, TypeScript will not complain, or TypeScript will not throw any error after the compilation. But can you guys see the error in this? This code will perfectly pass through TypeScript compiler, but it will break 100% of the times at in the runtime, because we are accessing the 0th element and accessing the num key in it. But this array does not have any elements inside it. So there are other ways, including this, where you can actually trick TypeScript and it will let you pass through perfectly, but it will throw error most of the times in runtime environment. So these are the types of things that you want to actually avoid. So this is where all the pitfalls that I've been talking about shines, and the number of and the similar cases. So I'll briefly talk about the agenda of this talk. So we'll start with declaration files. We'll talk about what are declaration files, how to generate them, and how do you actually use them. Then there are a specific type of declaration file called ambient files, ambient declaration files. These are the files that you can actually find at definitely typed repository. We'll also talk about what is definitely typed repository. So definitely type repository, just to give you a small idea, it's a repository where you actually get types for your React and React DOM packages. Then we'll talk about how do you write test cases for your types. Now this is a bit unconventional because most of the people don't write test cases for their types, but types are also code, right? So you have to write test cases for them too. You should actually write test cases for them. While you're writing test cases, uh, there is one important thing is to debug your test cases and debug your type resolution. When I say type resolution, I mean where is this being type resolved from by the TypeScript compiler? Where are all the type declarations being resolved from? We'll talk more about it when we come to this. Then finally, one of the most important topic of this talk is typing the API response. API response. So every application that you will develop will most probably will have an API call. I'm talking about an application, not a library. And API response, the response of an API is something that is outside of your application. Your application does not have any control on it, and it can change. And that will break your application at runtime. So how do you try and maximize the avoidance of those errors? Then we'll talk about utility types. Utility types are very general, high-level utility types that TypeScript provide that you can use to compose more sophisticated types. This will build the foundation of our last demo, the generics demo that we'll be doing. And then we'll talk about a very, very specific use case of never. Never is another utility type that TypeScript provide. So we'll create an exhaustive switch case. I'll explain you what is an exhaustive switch case when we get to it. So let's start. So what is a declaration file? A declaration file is nothing but it's a file that is generated by a TypeScript compiler from your TypeScript code, and it does not have any values. It will just have the declaration and the type information of all your attributes, like data attributes, function attributes, and all of these things. So for example, you have a sum.ts file, which has this function inside it, sum, that takes two numbers and return a number output. Your declaration file will look something like this. It does not have, it defines the function sum, it declares the function sum more precisely. It defines the input data type and the output data type of the function sum, but it does not talk about the implementation of the sum at all. These declaration files are useful for one very important reason. So whenever you have an NPM package of your, let's say you are writing an NPM package or a library that is written in TypeScript, and when you publish it to TypeScript, when you publish it to NPM, you actually compile it to JavaScript and then you publish it. And whenever someone imports it, they actually import the JavaScript part of it. That is where you might lose the type safety or the type auto suggestions and everything that you must have got when you were actually writing the library in TypeScript. So that is where declaration files comes into play. Declaration files are used by your editor and the TypeScript compiler to check if you're using the outside package or an NPM package, which is in JavaScript right now, if you're using it correctly or not. So what about the packages that were actually not written in TypeScript, which were actually written in JavaScript? How do you get declaration files for them? Because there are a numerous number of cases where you're actually writing your main application in TypeScript, but you're actually using a package that is written in JavaScript, which does not have declaration files in it. That is where ambient declaration files come into role. So ambient declaration files are declaration files for your packages that are written in JavaScript, not in TypeScript. So these declaration files cannot be generated by the TypeScript compiler. They have to be taken, they have to be manually created. One huge example of this is React. So definitely type repository it's a repository on GitHub which maintains ambient declaration files are over 6,000 NPM packages, including React and React DOM. These are manually written by the community. They may or may not be written by the library author itself. And these are just declaration files. They don't have any values in them. When you're creating a declaration, ambient declaration files for your definitely typed repository, there are a particular structure for that. And now This structure has a lot of importance when we come to the next section. That's why I'm explaining the structure right here. So that structure is, in the first line, you define the package version. So for example, you're writing a declaration file for your React router package. You have to define the which version of React router package this declaration files belongs to. In this case, it's 5.1. Then in the second line, you write the project URL, just the GitHub URL of the package that you're writing declaration file for is enough. Now, this is the most important part. This is where you write the owners of the declaration files. Who owns this declaration file? Who is responsible for merging changes to this declaration file? Sorry. Next is the version of TypeScript that this declaration file confirms to. So for different version of TypeScript, you might have different declaration files. There are two major problems when using definitely typed repository in a very large scale project. One is every declaration file inside definitely typed repository is manually created. So it's very easy to get unaligned with the original package. For example, you're writing declaration files for React Router version 5.1, and let's say 3 months later, they released 5.2, which has one more function exported in the public API. It's not a breaking change, but it has one more additional function exported in the public API. But your current ambient declaration file does not provide types for that function. So the TypeScript compiler will not be able to recognize that function, and it might start throwing error on that. So this is where your manually created declaration files get very easily unaligned with the original package. Then there is the strategy according to which the changes to the declaration files get merged into the definitely typed repository. So there is very weird rule in which if you create a PR to a particular package in definitely typed repository, the owner of the repository gets notified by a bot. And if the owner is away for, let's say he's on a vacation for the next 7 days, your PR will get merged automatically without any test cases, without anything. Now that is where a lot of bugs start coming into your definitely typed declaration files. So what happens? How do you actually tackle those bugs or those issues which you face in your ambient declaration files provided by the definitely typed repository? There are two mechanisms to that. First is you fork the repository and you hack the type resolution mechanism system of the compiler. Second is just a debug mechanism where you actually see how TypeScript is resolving your declaration files, like how is it actually find a particular declaration file for a package. So this is where we actually see some code. So I have this select component, a very basic select component. Actually doesn't do anything, but this is not the interesting part of it. The interesting part is it provides you, so when you're importing React from the React package, it provides you the definition and the types of forward ref function. If you click command click on this, you'll get to the declaration files inside the @types folder in your node modules. It will have index.d.ts inside the React package. This is where your types are being resolved from via your TypeScript compiler. How do we hack it? So let's say you find some bug inside it. How do we actually hack it without pushing it to the original repository? You can simply go here and you can provide paths, and you can write the package that you are hacking the type resolution for. So let's say I'm hacking the type resolution for React, and you can provide the path where the new declaration file of this can be found. So I'll do types/React, and I'll create a new folder called, now it will show you an error saying paths cannot be used without specifying base URL. So let's specify a base URL. This should be good. It's okay, it's just showing the same error again. It's not able to realize that we have added the base URL. Let's create a types folder as we have specified here. Create types. Okay, I have the types folder. I'll create a file called react.b.ts. And I'll declare a module namespace called React. Declare namespace React, and I'll declare the type of let's say React node, and I redeclare it to number. So ideally React node should not be a number, but I'm redeclaring it to number and seeing if I can actually see. Wait, I have to move it inside this file, and now I can see errors here. So I have to name it. Port the declaration also. Now, so I'll just walk you again through this react.d.ts file. I've created a namespace called React. Inside it, I have just declared one thing called React node and the type of it as number. I've exported this module so that it can be imported by the TypeScript compiler. And now you can see it has started throwing all of this error. Okay, I have to rename it. Index.d.ts, and in TypeScript it should be so now it is a module. It's an UMD module which I've exported like this, and now it's showing that it does not have all of these things. It does not recognize all of these things because I've hacked the TypeScript resolution. So instead of let's add another variable, another compiler option here called trace resolution, and I'll put its value as true. This will provide you logs for how it's actually resolving the declaration files. So if I run the command yarn build, I'll show you what is in the yarn build command. It's simple, the TypeScript compiler TSC. If I run yarn build and export it output to out.txt, there's this file called out.txt. It's been generated, and let's search for React. Here it is. You can read this line: module name React was successfully resolved to production TS demo types/index.d.ts. So instead of going inside your node modules types directory @types directory where it was actually going previously, it is now using our type declaration. So whenever you see any error inside your definitely type declaration repositories, you can actually fork it, create a new repository out of it. You can put it inside your types/index.ts or react.d.ts, both will work, and simply provide the path here. This path will always take precedence over the @types repository. And if you want to debug if where it's actually being resolved from, you can use this trace resolution boolean. Next is types, tests for your types. So your types are also codes, but we generally do not write tests for our types. I'll show you how we can write tests for our types and why we cannot. We'll be using a library called TSD for that, and I'll also demonstrate why we cannot use or why we cannot rely on just for providing type safety or test cases for our types. So let me go back to my editor again. Let me remove this. We don't need this. And it should start working again. Yes. So inside my package JSON, I already have this library called TSD. So TSD is this library that we are using for writing test cases for our types. So I'll go ahead and create a folder called tests-types. And inside this, I'll create a file called index.d.ts. Index.d.ts is the main file that is required by the TSD library to start running your test cases. What I'll do is I'll export everything from test. When I do export everything from test, it will go inside the test index.d.ts and re-export its exports. And then I'll create a new file called index.test-d.ts. This is the file where I'll actually start writing test cases for my types. So I'll show you the types at once. So the first type is the select prop. It takes an options as an option array. And type option has two keys, value, which is of type string, and label, which is of type React node or string. Go back to the d.test file and I'll import my test cases. I'll import my types first. I'll import the option type and the select props type. I'll import a few utilities from TSD, which is expect assignable and expect not assignable. And then I can write simple test cases like expect not assignable, type, option, null. Expect option type to be not assignable to null. You can write more test cases like accept assignable option to label and value a string, any string, any other string. Now to run these type test cases, so these are two test cases that I've written for my option type. I have this command in my package JSON called, I don't have it right now. Let's create a command to run test cases. Test:types npx tsd inside my test. I'll write the name of this directory here because this is where all of my test cases are. Tests-types. Let's run this. Test-types. So I think so the test cases I have run successfully, and it did not give us any error. Let's modify the test cases a bit and expect not assignable. Change it to I change it from assignable except not assignable to expect not assignable, and then I'll rerun my test cases. So it will give you an error saying type this is assignable to the parameter of option. So it's saying it is assignable, but you're using expect non-assignable. You're expecting it to be non-assignable, but it is actually assignable. Now, let me go back to the index.tsx file where I've actually written types for that, and let me change it to number. I've edited my type. The value was initially of string type, now it's of number type. I'll rebuild my project, and then I'll rerun my test cases. And it says type string is not assignable to type number. Here. So this is how you can write test cases for your types. Now the important question, why can't we just simply use Jest instead of using a new library called TSG? So I'll give you a small example for that. Let me go back here and revert this to string, rebuild the project, and rerun the test cases just to make sure everything is fine. Awesome. Now what I'll do is I'll change this type to any. Your Jest will never throw an error on this. It will never throw an error on this saying this is any, why is this any? It will assume that it's any and it will make it work. But if you run you'll build your project again. Let's rerun our test cases to see if our test cases throw an error or not. Let's rerun our test cases. So it says an error. Argument of type null is assignable to parameter of type any. And we have written in our test cases expect non-assignable. So whenever your type changes by any mistake, there are a lot of possible scenarios where your code will not throw an error, where your TypeScript compiler will not throw an error, where your Jest will not throw an error. That is where your TSG will come into play, and your tests for your type cases will actually help you. So let me revert it back, rebuild it. We're rebuilding it again and again to just get the updated index.t.ts file. And now the test cases should be running fine. Awesome. So this is how you can write test cases for your types. The next topic is typing API responses. This is the most important part this is one of the most important part of the whole talk. The problem with API responses is the API responses come into your application when the application is running, which means at the runtime. But type safety leaves you at the compile time only. So these are some API responses are something that is uncontrollable by the application. You cannot control it. These are kind of a side effect to your application, which your application has to consume, and they can actually break your application at runtime without you being able to do much about it. Even while typing API responses properly using your using the techniques that I'll talk about it in a minute, you cannot be 100% sure that your API responses will not break your application. The techniques that I'll be talking about just to give you the maximum surety that is possible as of now. And inside my source, I'll create an API.ps file. I already have Axios for making an API call. I'll simply write a function called const get employee. That takes nothing, but makes an API call. It returns a promise that is returned by the Axios once it makes an API call. Let me for that import Axios. And I'll do Axios dot get We just get the URL. This is the URL. This is just a dummy URL which returns the list of employees, and I have the type also for the list of for the employee object, and this is the type. So for every employee that this API returns, it will have an ID of string. It will have an employee name of type string. It will have an employee salary of type string. It will have an employee age of type string, and it will have a profile image of type string. Let me export it. Let's see the type of this as being inferred by the TypeScript. So it says it will be of type promise, angle bracket Axios, angle bracket any. So let's simplify it a bit. I'll do response and then return response dot data. Let's again see the type of this. Right now it returns a promise of type any. But ideally it should return promise of employee array. Now it shows the correct type that we actually want, but this is not the correct type because we have manually forced this type on this function. Instead of this function being inferred of this returning this type, we are actually forcing this function to return this type. So how do we actually make sure that it always returns this type instead of we forcing it? We'll use something called type guards. So type guards, what type guard does is you pass a data inside a type guard. A type guard is nothing but a function. You pass a data inside your type guard, and it will make sure that the return data, the return or the output data, will always be of the type that you want. So when you pass a particular data inside it, it will make sure that the return data will always be of that particular type that you want. Else it will throw an error. So let me create a function called isEmployee. It will take data of type any, and it will return true if that data is of type employee. So we'll do a normal type checking using type of operator of JavaScript. Data.id, we have to check that data.id is equals to string type of, and type of data.employee name is also string. Type of data.employee salary is also string. Has to be in double quotes. Data.employee age has to be string, and type of data.profile image has to be string. Now this is plain JavaScript. It has nothing to do with any TypeScript magic, but this is where the TypeScript magic comes. We'll say when we specify the return output of isEmployee, instead of saying a Boolean, we'll say data is employee. So this method returns true only when data is employee. So this is like saying this Boolean should be regarded as a symbol to the compiler if this, when I say this, I mean the data, if the data that is passed to the function is regarded as an employee type. So this will give an indication to the compiler rather than at the runtime data structure. It will give an indication to the compiler that the data returned by this function is of type employee. Now I'll create another, but the problem here is we don't have just one employee, we have an array of employees. I'll create a new function called assert type array. Assert is type array, and it takes a generic type. We'll talk about the generic types later, but you can think of generic type, you can right now think of generic type simply as function arguments. So it's like instead of data arguments or method arguments, you're passing type arguments. That's it. So it will take, this method will take two arguments called data, which is of any, and it will take a type checker. Now this type checker will take again, so let's call it arg, and let's call this data of any, and it will return data is t. And now I've made it a function. When I hover over it, it gives me an error saying variable assert is type array implicitly has type any, because we haven't defined its return type. So let's define its return type. Return type is asserts arg is t array. Let me make it a function. And now, yep, there we go. So let's go through the function signature once again. It is a function that takes a generic type. The first argument is of type any. You can pass the API response to it directly. You don't know the type of the API response, that is why it is any. Second is a check function that takes any data of type any. Again, you don't know the response because you don't know the type because it's an API response, but it returns in Boolean and specify if the data is of type t, which is being passed as an argument to the function again. The return type of assert is type array function is again asserts arg is t array. This syntax means this function will throw an error if arg is not of type t array, else it will let the data pass through it. We can write simple checks here. First, we'll check if the argument is actually an array or not. If it's not an array, we can throw error saying arg is not an array, and we can simply print the whole arg. You can safely do JSON.stringify because it will not have a cyclic dependency. Since it's an API response, it has to be serializable. Here comes the best part, where you actually do arg.sum. The TypeScript compiler now knows that it's an array, because if it's not an array, it would have thrown an error here itself. Since if it has passed this if condition, it is an array. We'll do item not check. Here we are telling iterate over each item on the args array and run the check function. If any of the item fails to comply by the check function, throw an error. is not of expected type, if any of the item is not of type employee for a particular use case, we'll throw an error saying arg is not an expected type, and we'll again print the whole arg just for the debugging purposes. And now let's use this. Let's remove this for now, just to make sure that we are doing everything right. Right now it shows the return type is promise array. Now, if I do this, response from API is equal to response.data. Assert is type array. I'll pass the data response from the API, and I'll pass the check function as is employee, and then I'll return response from API. And if I hover over to check its type, now this function returns a promise of employee array of type employee array. If anything goes wrong, this will throw an error right here only. So the error doesn't bubble up to the main part of your application. And if you're using Sentry or some other error logging application, you can directly catch this error or create your own custom error type by extending the error class and log that error to Sentry and show a proper error response to the user. This does not give you a lot of type safety, but it does not let your error to bubble up to the main part of your application and show a white screen to the user. And from now on, if this check passes, every function that uses get employee will have the type guarantee to have a promise that resolves to an array of employee type, which we have defined here. So this is how you actually write, make sure or avoid major error or major unexpected errors in your application due to API responses. And you can get type safety by using assert types and is using the is operator in TypeScript. So these are the two key parts in that. The way I've created assert is type array function here. You can create another various utility functions. This is just a utility function where I'm checking an array. You can assert is string. You can create function like assert is string. You can create function like assert is an object, assert is a record. You can create various functions like that. So this is the time for asking questions. Like if you have any doubts or any questions around this.
There is one question, Rajat. So that is assert is provided by TypeScript. Avinash has asked this question.
Right. So the assert is provided by the TypeScript itself. So it's a way to define the return type of your assert, this specific type of function. So it means you will throw an error if the return type does not comply to the specific type that you want it to comply by. And I'm talking in a very generic way because you're using generic type here by using the t variable. But if we talk about the very specific case of our employee data type, we can say it will throw an error if data or if arg is not an array of type employee.
Okay. I hope you got your answer, Avinash. If you did not, you can probably raise your hand and get it more clarified. I'm just moving into answer now. Guys, do you have, okay, I got a thumbs up. I think he got the answer. Do you guys have any other question in this part of the webinar? Rajat, we can continue.
So we'll start with utility types. This will lay the foundation of the last demo that we have in the next slide. That will be a kind of a big demo. Utility types are higher order types that TypeScript provides, you can use it to compose new types. For example, so let's say I have this type called person, which has two keys, name of type string, age of type number, and I want to create a type that just holds the attributes of these of the type person. So for example, name and age. I can use a key of utility type. Key of utility type, what it does is it will just, this type will have the only possible value as name and age. If I go ahead and add a new attribute here, let's say or designation, again string. Now this type will have three possible values: name, age, and designation. So it's a dynamic way of creating new types. Let's remove this, and if I create a new variable of type person attribute, which is of key type person, and assign it a random value, it will obviously throw an error, because the only possible values for random attribute is name and age. Another utility type is extract. What extract does is you can provide a list of all the possible types, and at the last argument you provide the data type that you want to extract. So if I provide number, it will extract all the numbers from it, and that will be the type of only numbers. So only numbers can only possibly take 1 and 2. If I add C here, it will not change the possible values for only numbers because it's string and we are only talking about numbers here. But if I add 3 here, using this operator, now the type only number can have 1, 2, and 3 as possible values, yeah. So this is how extract works. Then there is pick utility type. What pick does is, so let's say you have a big object which you have an interface or a type which has multiple keys in it. You can simply pick and choose a set of keys from it, and you can create a new type that will only contains that set of keys. So my promise generally has two keys in that, dot, then, and catch. And if I want to create a type that only has then, I can just say pick then property of promise. Now that this has then, so I'll create a new variable called has then, which has a type has then, and I've used a generic type t, which I've given the value number here. And when I use has then dot then, it works fine. But if I use has then dot catch, it will throw an error, because here I've just picked up the then property of promise, not the catch property. If I pick up catch also, it works. Comment it back. Next is the omit utility type. It's an opposite of pick. So in pick, you choose a particular keys from the type. In omit, you discard the particular set of keys from the type. So in the person type, you had number and age, and you're discarding age. So just name will be an object with only the name key. If I discard name also, it will be an empty object. Created a new variable called just name, which has a type just name, and I've added name in this. And if I add age also, it will throw an error because it's not supposed to have an age key, because I've omitted it out. So omit is an exactly opposite of pick. In pick, you pick and choose a set of keys. In omit, you discard a set of keys. Then there is partials. So what partial does is, it non-mandate the mandatory keys in a type. So for person, for a variable, for a data to be of person type, it mandatorily has to have the name key and the age key with the type string and number. If I use the partial on this, the person type, the new type that I get has name and age key as non-mandatory. These are not the required keys. I can have one, I can have both, I can have nothing. This is very useful when you are importing a component and creating a wrapper around it. When you want to say that these are the only, I can override a few things. So you imported a component from a library, you imported the prop types also, the type of that prop also, and you created a wrapper around that component and said all of the attributes are non-mandatory, all of the props are non-mandatory on this type because I've already provided an overridden value of that. And if a user provides a particular key, it will override on top of my overrides also. So partial is just to convert not mandatory keys into non-mandatory keys. Then there is an exclude. Let's move this exclude on top of extract. Here, make more sense here. So in extract, we just extracted a particular values of type number. In string, we excluded all the values of type string. So it's the exact opposite of extract. In extract, we pick the values of type number. In exclude, we exclude the values of type defined here. So non-string can have 1 and 2 only. If I write C also here, it will exclude C also because it's of type string. So the only possible values are 1 and 2. But if I write 3 here, you can see the type can have 1, 2, and 3 as possible types. The last one is record. Let's talk about this thing first. A record defines a type of a JavaScript object. So the first, it takes two arguments. First is the type of the keys, and the second is the type of the values. So let's say you're creating a dictionary of type string and string. The keys can only be of type string and the values can only be of type string. Then you can create a hash map in which the keys can be of type string sorry, and values can be of type any. It can be a function, a string, number, or another record. It can be anything. Now there is a very specific example of using record. So let's say you have a list of persons in your UI and you want to create filters. So you can create a filter on top of name. So filter in all of the users with this particular name, or filter in all of the users with all of the persons with this particular age. So what I've done here is I've created a record. The keys can only be name and age. And the value is a function that takes the attribute that takes the key of person type. So the attribute can only be again string and number. Let's see this in a bit detail. Yep. So this means the new type that I have can only have name and age, which are the keys of the person type, right? But when I do this, this is exactly like accessing a value in an object, but here you're accessing a value in a type. So the values in that type are string and number. So the new type becomes string and number. So that's why attribute is, let me remove this. Attribute is of type string and number, and it returns a promise of type person array. So this is, more generally speaking, this is a function that takes the filter that the user have applied. You can only apply one filter at a time, and then returns a promise or makes an API call and then returns a promise that resolves to a array of persons. So this is about the utility types. So we talk about the key of utility type, which is used to access just the keys of a type. Then we've talked about extract, pick, omit, partial, exclude, and record. We talked about a bunch of more that are not mentioned here. We'll be using all of them, not all of them, most of them in our last demo. Next, we'll talk about exhaustive switch. Now, this exhaustive switch is a first, I would say, first member, like first class member of most of the functional programming languages, when it says that if you have a variable that can take the value as 1, 2, 3, and you are using a switch case on it, most of the functional language compiler will throw an error if you miss a case. For example, here we have missed a case when the number can take the value as string 3. We have missed that case, and most of the compilers, functional language compilers, will throw an error. But JavaScript will not throw an error, and that could cause a possible a possible surface area for bugs in your programs. So let's see how we can use TypeScript. TypeScript does not provide a very direct way of approaching this problem, but you can actually use the never type. There's this type called never in TypeScript that you can use to create a illusion of a exhaustive switch. Let's create a new file called exhaustive switch.ts. What we'll do in this is, so at Certa, we are one of the most important aspect of a front-end application is a form rendering engine, where we actually render fields, where we render a form, and in that form we have multiple fields, and those fields can be of type, like we have like hundreds of fields right now, but I'll give you a very small example. Let's say we have created a field type called field type that can be of, let's say, single select or a checkbox. And now I create a function which returns the component for that particular field type. So when the user wants to render a single select, a select box, which component should be rendered? Get field component. It will take field type of field type as an argument. And let's write the definition of this. Switch field type, and when it's single select, I'll return. But right now, since I don't have all of the components, I'll just return string, which defines the name of those components. Select. And there is another thing for the checkbox, will return that was right, sorry. Checkbox. And let's write the return type as string. And let's add the default case. Let's null string. Should never reach here, right? Let's go to this function again. It's a function that takes the field type as an argument, which is string, but of very specific values, and returns another string, which is the name of the component or the React component that should be rendered. So when the field type is single select, it should render a select component. When the field type is checkbox, it should render null string. Well, let's create a noob component that does not render anything. Now this is all very good and fine, it will never break because it will never reach the default case. But what happens if I introduce a new field called Boolean and I forgot to add this inside my case? There is nothing, compiler will not complain about this. It will actually go in the production and it will break in the runtime. So how do we tackle this? So let's remove this for now and create a new error. Let's do one thing. Let me create const f is equals to field type. Now this is very weird because here the field type has type never. TypeScript shows that the type is never, but I've specified that the field type will have type field type, which I've defined on the line number 1. This is how TypeScript actually helps us. I'll create a new error called unreachable error. Extend it from the error class, and inside the constructor, I'll take the value of type never. Never is another top type. It's actually a bottom type. So any. So there are top types in JavaScript, like any and unknown. Then there are bottom types, never. So we call any and unknown as top type because they can assume any value. Then we call never as bottom type because it cannot assume any value. So we create an unreachable error that extends extends error class, and the constructor takes value as never and message as string. That's a very general way of extending error. And then I'll call super that says unreachable code forgot to handle a case. You can then add your message also here. Sorry. And now here, instead of returning something, I'll simply do return new unreachable error with the string field type let's pass. Oh, okay, sorry. I have to pass, the first argument has to be the value, which is of type never. So it has to be field type. And the second argument is the string. Let's pass an empty string for now. Let's see what the error is. Let's remove the return type. Now, let me move this to the bottom. Now, if I go ahead and add a Boolean possibility to field type and do not handle it here, it will start, the TypeScript compiler will start throwing an error. The reason is because since we have specified this value as never, and it will only be never in the default clause when all of the cases are handled above. And since we have not handled the Boolean case, it's not never here, it's of type Boolean. That's why it's saying argument of type string is not assignable to parameter of type never. The field type is Boolean, which cannot be assigned to never. So if you go ahead and handle Boolean case, radio, it will stop throwing an error. You later on add a new field called text, it will again start throwing an error. So this is how you create an exhaustive switch Your compiler, rather than your runtime code, is forcing you to handle all of the possible cases. Questions, doubts?
Guys, this will be the final Q&A now. So you can shoot all the questions in the question section.
Sana, there will be one more
One
actually.
more?
So
Okay.
yeah, this is just like, because this is a very different thing as compared to other things that
Okay,
JavaScript
okay,
text provides. So I thought we should go ahead and ask.
yeah. Okay.
So the last topic is generics. So we have seen a lot of generics over the course of this webinar. One of them is here. This is the utility generic that we were seeing. In this, we have created a type called hasThen, which takes a parameter t. Now, when we say a type takes a parameter, we are talking about generic types. Generally, a function is something that takes parameter, but a type can also take a parameter, which lets user define the types during the execution of that function or the type. So I'll give you a small example here. Yep. So let's say you are making an API call, and that API call takes some argument, let's say name, string, and it returns a promise of type string array. Promise.resolve name1, name2. Now this returns a promise of string. We have been like while doing React, we have been using React Query or SWR or other API calling hooks that we actually pass the argument API calling function to it. Let's say use API call hook. We all must be having some hook like that that makes an API call and returns the data and status. That could be loading or something, and we pass this API call argument in that. Now, how do we actually type the type of this data argument? The status could be very easy. So the status will always be, I'll just write in the comments here, maybe a string, or let's say Boolean for now, for the sake of simplicity. But this data has to be of type what this API call returns, right? How we handle this here is we provide a generic type here, which will be string array, and this data, the API call hook is returned in a way that this data will automatically be of string array. If I provide numbers array, this will automatically become number array. So when the user defines the data type of the return value, when the user defines or dictates, when the user dictates the data type of the return value, and it can be generically defined, that is where we use generic types. So for our last demo, we have this component called table. Now what this table component does is, I have a piece of code already written, so I'll just paste it here and I'll walk you through it. So I have this functional component in React that renders the table component that I've declared on the top. This table component takes two argument data source and columns. This is how my columns look. So column is just an array. A column is obviously an array, and each object in that array defines how my column will look like in the table. So this object defines how the columns will be rendered. So first is the title, that is the name of the column. Then key, because this is something very React specific, because React needs the key attribute to render things in a loop or using the map. So this is just that, a unique key for the column. Then there is this data index. Data index is the key from which you have to access the data to render inside the column from the data source, which means go to the name attribute of every item inside the data source and take the value of that name attribute and render it inside that column. So in the first column under the name, in the first row under the name column, Dan will be rendered. In the second row under the name column, John will be rendered. Similarly, we can also provide a render method. So a render method is like we want to do custom rendering with our own styling and our own theming, or maybe we want to sorry, maybe we want to do some date calculations before rendering. We want to render a date in a particular format. So we get the, so this render method provides the rendering or the UI logic to the caller of the table component. So these are the only two props that the table component takes. The data source, it's just an array of anything that you want. There is no restrictions on this. There are a lot of restrictions on the column. It's an array of objects. An object can only have title, key, data index, and render, where render is optional. And on the top, I've created a table component with a very loose typing. I've just said the props can be of type any. So in this demonstration, what we'll be going to do is we'll be taking step by step and writing the types for this table component. What is the best way and the correct way of making sure that we type the props of the table component in a way that it does not break any cases at the runtime. We do not lie about our types, and we type almost everything that is possible here. So let's start with so step one is to see let's collapse these things and see what are the different data props that this table is taking. So it's taking two props, data source and columns. So let's create a type called table props, and it will take data source. And since I don't know what the type of it will be, let's call it any for now. Another prop is column. Let's call it any again. Let's call it any, array of any. That's a bit more specific, just a bit more specific, but not what we want. And everything is working fine. We don't see any error in the editor. That's good. Next is we start defining the easiest thing that we have right now, which is data source. Data source is something that is defined by the user. We don't have any say in that. Any data type that the user want is possible in the data source attribute prop. So that is where a generic type comes in. So let's say we say a generic type of record type, and data source will be of that record type. Since we see an error here because table props required one argument, let's pass record type here and record type here. So your table component has a generic type, takes a generic type called record type, which gets passed to its table props, which get passed to the data source as it is. So your data source becomes an array of record type. Now that record type is a generic type, which means the user can define the type of it. User can define anything that he wants here. So this is how you use generic types to let user define the data type of your data. Let's define the record type now. So I'll define a type called data source, which is name string. I'm just using this structure. let's copy date of birth. It will again be a string. And age will again be, it will be a number now. Now my data source variable becomes an array of data source type. This lets the TypeScript infer, since we have said the data source is of record type, but we haven't specifically or explicitly provided the generic record type to a table component, but it has inferred using the type of the data source prop. Since a data source prop is of type data source, array of data source, and this is exactly what array of record type has to be, which means record type has to be of type data source. This is how powerful your TypeScript compiler is. It actually infers type. And how do we know if it has actually inferred the correct type? Just hover over the prop and you can see it has type data source. Let's go ahead and type our columns. So our columns are going to be, let's collapse this, and create a type column here. And let's look at the structure here. So our column will have a title, which is of type string. It has key, which is of type string. It has data index, which is of type string. And it has render, which is optional, but is of type function. For these two things, I've used a very loose data type right now, which will improve in the next section. And let's use it here. Everything is fine. The compiler is not complaining about anything. The next thing that we want to do is make the type of column more specific. Let's start with the data index. Let's start making it more specific. Sorry. Now data index, as we've already seen, it's just a key from the data source. A data index can only be a key from the data source. So why not make column, let's not start from here, let's start from here. Why not make column generic data, generic can take a generic type key, and it can have use the key of utility type. Let's make it data index can be key of t, and t is a generic type that is being passed to the column. We have to pass it here also. What do you think we should pass here? So think of it as a function. If this is a variable, this is an argument to the function, you're calling the function here. If column is the function, you're calling the column function here. What should be the value of the t argument? The t argument will be record type itself. We can use the same variable name here like we use in function. Record type to make it more readable and understandable. Now it gives you an error. It says string is not assignable to type name and date of birth. Now let's use the inference capability of TypeScript compiler to solve this error. And let's put it here. Since we have declared it on top, one way to solve this could have been do it like this. And data source. comment out. Let's see if that really works. See, that works. Once we have provided it a type and then we have passed it here, it works perfectly. But a more smarter way would be to use the inference engine of TypeScript instead of we providing a data type here directly. Let's remove this. Now we didn't have to specify any type for the column. TypeScript directly inferred it, and now it also provides us suggestions out of the box. It can see the data index can only be age, date of birth, or name. These are the only possible values inside this data source type. So it has inferred that the value of record type has to be the value of record type has to be the value of data source, an element of data source, and the value of data source is being inferred from this prop. So that's how it infers data types without you have to specify explicit data types everywhere. The last thing that we have to do is type the render function. Right now, the render function has a very loose type called function. Let's type it in a better way. So let's look at the code here. It takes a value and a record any. So it takes a value. Let's start with any. We don't know what the value of this value is, the value of this data index inside the data source. So for the first column, it will be Dan. For the first row, it will be Dan. For the second row, it will be John. Since it's the user-defined data type, we don't know the exact type of this. So we'll start with any. For the record argument, we know the exact data type, which is record type, and the return type has to be j6 dot element because it returns the j6 that has to be rendered. So this is how we use generic types deep down a type tree, and couple it with the TypeScript inference mechanism to actually not explicitly specify a lot of types. The problem with explicitly specifying a lot of type is a lot of surface area that you can where you can actually do a mistake or create a mistake. So the ideal scenario is where we let the inference mechanism do its job and we only specify the least possible or the least required types. We have, let's see how many any types that we have right now. We can remove this altogether. It will not complain, and it will also provide us suggestions because we have typed it properly on the top. We just have two any left here. And as a fact, we cannot avoid having any here in these two places because we have no idea what the values will be in the data source. Now one can actually go out of the way and provide data types for it, which can actually cause a lot of errors. I'll give you a small example. You can use the record type and key of operator of record type. Now here, let's remove this also. Record type, key of record type. So a value becomes anything in the key of record type. The value of So your record type is your data source. Key of is name, date of birth, and age. And when we use this syntax, we actually accessing the values, which is string, string, and number. So that's how you can actually go ahead and type this also. But this is actually an overcomplication in your code. This might become an overcomplication in your code later on, because this can be other things, other data types also, which is not supportable by date here, by the date function or any other computation that you're doing here. Then you have to retype it again. So that's why leaving a few of any's in your code, it's perfectly fine. The goal is to optimize and remove as many as any as you want, but you can never get rid of 100% any's from your TypeScript code.
Okay, we'll just wait for 2-3 more minutes. Meanwhile, you can go ahead and shoot the questions. Guys, I've shared all the links, like where you can follow us and you can get to know about a future webinar. Here, I've sent a feedback form also in the chat box. Guys, please take the feedback form and please provide us your valuable feedback so that we can come back with many more topics which interest you, because this was also one of the topics which you got from your feedback, and then we came back with this session with Rajat. So please give your valuable feedback. You can put any comment there, like the kind of topic you want. If you have any speaker suggestion in your mind which you want me to get him here and talk about this particular topic, for sure we can do that. Apart from that, you can join our front end community. I've shared the link there. I'll share the backend community link also. That's a WhatsApp group when we update day-to-day basis, like what kind of session we're gonna do in future. Apart from that, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Most of the recordings are there. We're still uploading the recordings for our previous sessions. That also will be there soon. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and in like that this recording also will be there soon. And yeah, I've shared Rajat's links also there, so you can follow him on LinkedIn. Like, just suppose if you're not able to ask questions right now and you're not getting any questions right now in your mind, for sure you can follow him there on LinkedIn and you can reach him out there. Okay, I don't think so we're getting any question. Okay, so it's a wrap. Thank you so much, guys, for joining in, and thank you so much, Rajat. I know I've taken a lot of your time in this busy week of yours. Even to take your availability was a difficult task for me. Thank you so much for giving us such a valuable session. And guys, I will be uploading the recording soon, maybe the coming week. Plus, join the group. I will be sharing the deck there. So please join it there so that you can have early access. Otherwise, I will anyway send a mail once we upload the recording on YouTube. So you will be getting a mail also, like all the attendees will be getting a mail for that. So please do that and please provide your feedback. That would be really great for us to understand your mindset and to come back with better session for you. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye bye.
Bye.